Hello, my name is Peter Michaud, and I'm with NSF's NOAR Lab. Um, and I'll be talking about communication best practices in the era of multi-messenger and time domain astronomy. Before we get into that, I want to just introduce the Gemma program, which stands for Gemini in the Era of Multi-Messenger Astronomy, funded through the National Science Foundation. The Gemma program is building instrumentation for the Gemini Observatory and also infrastructure to better utilize time domain astronomy and scheduling and alerts and things of that sort. So as part of that and the broader impact part of that, we dove into the communications aspects of multi-messenger and time domain astronomy. Now, multi-messenger and time domain astronomy is nothing new. We've been experiencing the universe using many senses. Meteorites, Tunguska, events like that. We see, we could feel, we can hear. We're all ultraviolet detectors when it comes to sunburns and whatnot. And so we do have many ways of sensing the universe, and with technology that's expanded. Also, the time domain astronomy. Since early times, humans have undoubtedly watched the motions of objects in the sky. And on the right there, we see the 1054 supernova explosion by the Chinese observed so well. And so the changing events in the sky, what we're talking about when we talk about time domain astronomy. And so again, when we get into multi-messenger astronomy now, with the technology that we have now, we have many different ways of observing the universe beyond the traditional optical view of the universe. We can observe such things as gravitational waves from mergers of black holes, neutron stars, and whatnot. So there's a lot happening in the field of multi-messenger and time domain astronomy, and there's a lot on the horizon as well. In terms of time domain astronomy, the Vera Rubin Observatory will take things to a whole new level with literally thousands of detections every night to follow up on. And so we've got exciting times ahead in time domain and multi-messenger astronomy. But the communications of these events is a challenge. And so again, as part of the Gemma program, we put together a very diverse set of events and activities, and the first of which was Multi-Messenger Time Domain Astronomy Communications Summit, which was held late 2019 at the Space Telescope Science Institute. And you can see all the participants. We had about 30 participants, from astronomy communicators to journalists and stakeholders like the National Science Foundation, all came together to talk about these issues. The result of that is a white paper that is currently online and you can access. And I want to do a special call out to Whitney Calvin, who did the bulk of the writing and development of this white paper from the summit in Baltimore at the Space Telescope Science Institute in November. So lots of information in this document, and I'll highlight some of that today as we go through slides. One of the other things that we've done is we did a media workshop at the January 2021 AAS meeting. And you can see the speakers that we had there, at the participants in that meeting. Very successful opportunity to meet with journalists and talk about multi-messenger and time domain astronomy and the challenges therein. Some of the primary issues that we're dealing with when it comes to multi-messenger and time domain astronomy, the obvious one is just the overwhelming number of authors and institutions that are often involved in these types of announcements. And I get a snapshot there on the right of just a section of one of the papers from a gravitational wave event in 2017, the first optical detection of a gravitational wave event. Obviously, we have challenges with recognition for all of the stakeholders, all of the universities, all of the funding agencies and whatnot. There'll be multiple press releases oftentimes that will overlap and in some sense compete with each other and compete with attention of the media. We also have competing teams too. Oftentimes there'll be several teams that will be releasing similar or competing results. There are a lot of international collaborations, and then you've got language and cultural issues as well that you need to deal with. Embargoes are another very difficult thing, because oftentimes multi-messenger time domain astronomy results involve results that are very high profile and very difficult to keep an embargo enforced over time. So oftentimes things have to move very quickly in order for that to work. Press conferences, oftentimes there'll be several press conferences, and then getting the right participation and diversity in those groups. And again, time dependency, things happen very quickly in this environment. And along those lines, social and new media have an immediacy that makes it extremely difficult to keep things moving at the time in the time frame that they need to move at in these type of events. And social media and new media work very, very quickly. And then finally, competing graphics, videos, and interviews from all of the different teams. And so coordination is the key to success when it comes to these sort of events. And so some of the highlights from the white paper that I mentioned, and some of the things that we've pulled out as best practices and things that we should be working towards when it comes to communicating these sort of events. All facilities should have a dedicated PIO to participate in the coordination of these communications. It gets very difficult if you have organizations that don't have a central contact person that can work with all of the other teams and all of the other communicators who are putting the packages together for these events. Scientists who are speaking either on press panels or speaking one-on-one with journalists should have formal media training so that they understand what the journalists need and better address what the needs are of the media community. Press conferences should be limited to no more than 5 panelists, and they should be diverse. Young scientists, underrepresented scientists should definitely be a good mix, a good diverse mix of panelists. And social media posts should be written in advance and coordinated with the scientists and with the other organizations if possible as well, to make sure that we're getting the right messages out in social and new media. And then graphics and video should be coordinated as well and shared openly as ideally in some sort of a Creative Commons environment. Some of the things we're talking about in terms of the next steps for multi-messenger and time domain astronomy is to hold a second summit. The first summit that we held in 2019 at Space Telescope Science Institute was limited to about 30 participants, and we couldn't invite everybody that we wanted to. And so broadening that participation seems to be a lot of interest in this also in communications that I've had with our community. Creating a large scientific collaborations communication network that could meet at AAS meetings, IAU and whatnot on a regular basis. Developing standards. The white paper that I mentioned has recommendations on that front, but are there some standards that we can all agree upon and document and have as a resource for all of us? And other resources could be social media policies that we can all abide by or adapt for our institutions, staff media training, as I mentioned before, graphics and video libraries that we can choose materials from, in a speaker bureau, identifying experts in certain aspects of multi-messenger and time domain astronomy who we can refer the media to when necessary. And finally, I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this, all of our panelists and participants in our summits and whatnot, and offer these 2 resources here. The workshop from the AAS is available streaming, and then you can also download the multi-messenger astronomy, time domain astronomy best practices white paper at this address here. So thank you very much for your time.